Hello, I'm Pastor Anthony, and we're here for another episode of the Biblical Story Series. This is Brendan, and we are going to talk about the Atonement as we've been addressing what Jesus Christ has done on the cross in the last videos and a few more to come. So the topic of atonement, and so I'll turn it over now to Brendan.
Well, the word atonement, it's right there in the word, at-one-ment. So how does atonement bring us into a sort of oneness with God, as you say in the article?
Everything that divided, that separated us, that kept us in opposition to God, mainly our sin, our rebellion, the cross has canceled all of that. None of that is held against us. None of that is in any way separating. There is nothing that we need to do to be one with God, to be in a relationship, to be called His sons and daughters, to be righteous, to receive an inheritance, to be a part of His favored plan and destiny. And this is not because of what we have done. It is because of the atonement. And the atonement means that Jesus upon the cross provided the atonement for sins. He removed everything that is a block or a barrier between us and God, so that it is by faith that we receive Jesus Christ, that we by faith receive the forgiveness of sins and what He provided. He provided the gift, He extends it, and now we just have to open our hands and say, yes, Lord, I receive it.
And obviously a large part of that gift is the removal of our guilt, the washing away of our guilt. And you mentioned in the article that our guilt is transferred or infused into Jesus, from us to Jesus. Now, how does that work? How is our guilt transferred to Him so that the burden of our shame is taken off of us? How does that work?
Yes. Well, a lot of people ask the question, how can the non-guilty person take the punishment for a guilty person? That's not right. That's wrong. And if Jesus actually kind of took on our sin in a way that He became sinful, that would be wrong. But what He did is He took on the punishment of our sin. So that what the Bible teaches and what we hold is that our sin, or the guilt of our sin, was imputed. It was counted legally to Jesus Christ. And God is the giver of all righteousness, of all laws, of all rules. He is able to impute. He didn't impart sin to Jesus Christ. He imputed sin. So Jesus didn't become sinful, but He bore the punishment that we deserve, so that we are then imputed with the righteousness of Christ.
It's like a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, and it's illegal. It is legal. That's where we confuse it. We think it is that I need, if I'm as righteous as Jesus, it means that I don't sin and I'm always close to God. I'm always doing what I should. No, none of us, we are so far from that. But what is imputed to us as righteousness, it is a legal declaration, and that's why it's received by faith. Now, we become more righteous as we live and grow, but that has nothing to do with our standing. So imputed means a legal declaration, and God is the just judge and lawgiver of the universe, can and has every right to do that type of imputation.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the reason that our guilt is able to be legally transferred to Jesus is because God, the controller of objective morality, of justice, has said this is a valid way for our sin to be wiped away from us, for us to be in good legal standing with Him.
Completely and totally, yes.
All right. And I guess that leads me to my final question, which is hard for me to wrap my mind around this. How does God come down in the flesh as Jesus Christ to take the punishment that we deserve, that He, being the almighty, all-righteous, just judge, sets out for us, that He must give to us because of our wickedness? How does He take the punishment that I worded it before, that He sets for us?
It's love. It is His love. I mean, I work with people all the time. God calls them into a ministry, or God calls them to do something, and then after they get called, they encounter all types of mess ups, or they fail in these areas, or they have all these kind of difficulties, and though they follow the call of God, life gets harder. Well, did I miss God's call? No, you didn't. God had already accounted for that, and he's going to grow you through that. Well, when God created the universe and created humanity, he knew we would mess up. He knew what we would do. The fall of humanity did not take him by surprise. But he loved us so much that he would determine that when we fall, that he would come down and he would show an even greater love for us by taking the punishment. And the fact is that we can know the love of God in a greater way than Adam and Eve before they sinned, because we see the extent of God's love in what he did by sending Jesus Christ on the cross. And so even in our sin, love increases because God the Father, sending the Son in the connection of the Holy Spirit, showed a greater love than even our sin and rebellion. And that gives us encouragement that no matter when we fall, when we mess up, when things just kind of blow up around us, we know that God is still going to extend a greater love to lead us to rise above the things that are wanting to bring us down. That's what he did in what's called salvation history, the whole history we see from the Bible, from creation up till when Christ comes or returns. And that's the kind of love God showed.
It was a few months back, and I can't remember if you were saying this or if you were quoting someone, but you said that there was no other timeline that demonstrates God's love more profoundly than the one in which we sin and rebel against him.
And God's response to that, yes. I mean, it's an amazing thing that even in our rebellion and our sin, God shows a greater love. He is love, and he is determined that no matter how far away humanity goes, he paid the price in atonement, and he still reaches out to us through the Holy Spirit, through the mission of the church, through all of the blessings he gives, and he calls us back to him, and he says that not one of us is hopeless, or not one of us is too far gone. And this is the beautiful doctrine that is rooted and grounded in the atonement, and that, as we talked about in a prior blog you wrote, have been prophesied. All of those images in the Old Testament, have been pointing to this. It's been the heart of God, from eternity to do this.
Beautiful, beautiful message. Well, Anthony, thank you for being here.
Brendan, thank you.
See you next week. Thank you for joining Anthony and I today on the Biblical Story video series. Please subscribe to the Crossroads CCO YouTube channel, like, and share this video. Until next time.